I've been waiting to hear what Kevin Franke had to say during all of this, and I'm just going to say 2 words to sum up my overall feelings after watching his interview. Highly disappointed, okay? And we're going to talk about it in today's video. Hello, Sofa Squad. Welcome back to the sofa. My name's Paul. I'm sitting in front of the sofa. The sofa's back here. Roscoe usually sits there, but it was extreme bath time, so I am holding him because I know y'all don't want to hear that noise going, and neither do I. Now, today we are going to be continuing our conversation about all the evidence that has been released in the Ruby Franke and Jodi Hildenbrandt case. Today, specifically, we'll be reviewing the video of Kevin Franke. This is Ruby's ex-husband, I guess, at this point, being, brought in the day that the children, all this went down, and the police are talking to him and interviewing him. And we'll be going over video clips in this. So, that being said, the way these videos work is I kind of talk about it, make commentary throughout, and then at the end of the video. So, there's that. If you do want to follow Roscoe and I outside of YouTube, we are on Instagram, on Instagram. Go on, give it a click. It's on the screen. It's in the description. So, what we're going to do is we're going to start off, and let's just go ahead and watch the first clip, and then I'll talk about things I want to let everybody to kind of just be aware of as we watch them.
Okay. Do you understand your rights?
I do.
Okay. Do you wish to speak to me now?
Well, I want to pick up my kids.
How about this? We're going to ask you some questions, and if you don't want to answer them, you just say, hey, man, I'm not going to answer that.
Sure.
And we
Just say, hey, I'm not going to talk. That's not beneficial to you, and then we're done. You're nowhere, and we're nowhere. And
Sure.
you understand that, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so here's where we're at. You see, they read him his rights. That came before the little clip. And he's like, well, I want to pick up my kids. And at first, when I started watching this, I was like, this is right. This is what I want to hear. This concern for his kids. There's a little bit of like this, which at first I thought was normal because I'm like, this has to be completely disoriented. And surely he's over here thinking, where are my kids? What's going on? The whole 9 yards. However, as we get deeper into this interview, I have learned that I'm like, no, there's just this overall level of being checked out that just never leaves. And so it's concerning, but let's go on to that next clip.
So are they all living with you, or?
No. I haven't seen them for over a year.
Any of them?
No. None of them.
For a year?
Over a year.
Okay.
I've been in a separation.
From who?
From my wife and family.
What's your wife's name?
Ruby.
Ruby. When's the last time you saw Ruby?
The last time I saw her
Yeah.
was the 18th of this month.
Okay, so one thing to also pay attention as we watch this is listen to the cops, the people, the detectives, whatever, that are interviewing him, because I feel like it's in my non-professional opinion. Remember, I'm not a doctor, a lawyer, a psychologist, any of that fancy stuff. I'm just a guy with a sofa and a dog and opinions. So they're just that. But it's my opinion that the cops very quickly can piece this story together. Like most of us could, where you're like, yeah, dude, this is kind of what's really going on with Jodi and Ruby and Jodi specifically. And so to me, I'm like, oh, the cops already, like, you can just see this train wreck that's going to happen. And this guy is so oblivious to it, right? The first clue is when he's like, I haven't seen my kids in over a year. I'm going through a separation. That's going to raise questions for anybody because oftentimes, like, especially in a scenario like this, where you're like, okay, did you do things to Ruby or the children? Or why do you not have access to the children to that degree? But yet you saw Ruby not that long ago. So it raises all these red flags, especially given the context that, remember, they're trying to figure out, do you know what's going on with these kids? Are you complicit with this? Like, are you okay with this? Did you have any part in it?
We met she requested me to sign over vehicles, or the titles to the vehicles, the vehicle that she drives, that were all in my name.
When's the last time you physically saw Russell or Eve?
The day that I moved out, July 24th, 2022.
When he's like, she wanted me to sign over this and sign over that, I was like, my God, they have done a number on this man. Gives up the kids, the cars, moves out, this, that, the other. I mean, come on, right?
Home here in Kayenta and Ivans. Have you been to that home?
No.
You've not been to that home?
No, I don't know. I don't know anything that's been going on.
Like, this is good, man. Like, I would love to be able to help you out with this, and like, I'm seeing the light of you in this home because I'm unaware of your involvement in what's really going on. So for you to say that you're unaware of the status of your kids kind of makes, I know that sounds kind of crummy to you, but it sounds kind of good to me.
Now, the thing that's sad, but I guess good for him in this zone or this moment that he's at, it's just like the cop said, the fact that he's so checked out of everything and reality, it seems, and especially his children's lives, benefits him in the scenario because it's like, yeah, I mean, he doesn't seem to know what went on specifically in his house, right? We'll get into my opinion on the treatment at home and things like that, but we're getting into that a little bit. But it's like, I've never been to the house. I don't know, and it's just like, and again, I guess it's like I can see how Ruby and by proxy of Jodi manipulated the situation, right? But nonetheless, it's like, were you really just okay? Just checking out of your children's lives to that degree, like mom knows best, like you just that utterly removed from the situation, because now here we are, right? But as we'll see here in a little bit, I think it becomes obvious that it's not, I don't even know if I want to say he doesn't care, but there's just something going on there that he's just checked out of the situation. And I think the cops slowly realize this throughout.
Like, who lives in that home with is it ex-wife? Is it currently a separated wife? Like, who lives in that home with your children?
To be honest, I don't know. I know that she's there with 4 of the children, and our 2 older children have moved out.
Don't know who lives there. It's bizarre. It's so bizarre. It's so frustrating. It's like, no wonder this came to this situation. I'm not putting it all on his shoulders, but literally everyone that had something to do with these children's lives and them just failed them on some level, or was active in doing these things to them, right? And just all the way around where it's like, again, I don't know what power, how Jodi was able to manipulate her way into these families and literally destroy them. Because this isn't the only situation in family like this with this type story, right? I mean, maybe to the degree of the things that happen to the kids, I'm not sure. But you hear from other victims of Jodi's who are like, yes, she had me moved out of the home. I was this horrible person. I was addicted to this, addicted to that. I couldn't be around my kids. I couldn't do this. And there's a certain point where I'm just like, how is she able to convince these people to do this? And I'm sure going to authorities doesn't help, right? Because they just want to get their kids back. And it's like, well, if they're saying that I need to stay away for a year, maybe I'll do that. But then it's just, there doesn't seem to be any level of concern. And as we'll see later, when the cops finally start coming forth with like, this is what's happened, there's this general lack of, oh my goodness, about it.
How did you find out that you needed to come here to 55 North Main Street?
I received a message that I needed to come pick up my kids from the police department in Highlands.
And who was that message from?
Well, I prefer not to say right now.
It would just help us a lot.
I'll try to figure out who reached out to you, because it makes sense that would happen. I'm just not aware of anyone who did that from our department.
Right. And I'm not comfortable saying right now who reached out to me.
Okay.
Now, what's interesting about this is the cops will not leave this alone. They come to a stalemate on this. They basically think it was Jodi. He is not going to say. They accuse him of lying at one point and saying that, he had said someone from the office, but they know that wasn't it. And he'll say, no, I never said that. And they go back and forth with this, or it's a Ruby something. And they'll come more, the cops will be more forthcoming with him and say, our main interest here is Jodi, right? Because again, this is where the children were found in this condition. But the fact that he will not say, I'm not going to tell. Again, I'm trying to sit here and even pivot myself to his point of view, where it's like, you've arrived here, you got a text message from we don't know who, let's pretend, right? You need to go pick your kids up from the police station. Okay, so I'm here, they're talking to me. Are they okay? I guess my thing would be, unless it was Ruby, because he would be trying to protect her, because we'll see that that's his main focus here in a minute. Not really the children, but Ruby. So he's trying to protect her. Anyone shy of that, and really even Ruby, like, oh, yeah, she said so, why? I am looking for that level of, like, what happened to the kids? I want to put my eyes on them. This is who told me to come here. Is that what you wanted to hear? Now tell me what happened. That's the level of excitement I'm looking for. And I'm absolutely not getting it. I'm getting someone who's covering tracks, being very careful. Now, I understand, again, you're in this particular situation. You don't want to, am I getting arrested? What's going on, right? So I understand that. But there is zero lack of concern about these kids. We've seen the lack of concern from Ruby, the lack of concern from Jodi, and now it seems to be even present with him.
And during your marriage, how was disciplining your kids? How would you discipline your kids?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay, that's fine.
Y'all, that right there, I'm not going to answer that question. Now, let's look at both sides of the fence. Obviously, we know at this point, right? They've been convicted, this, that, and the other, except for him. Okay, so there's two versions. If somebody were to say, oh, I spanked them. Okay, there's today's version of viewpoints on spanking, and then like when I was a kid, viewpoints on spanking, right? And that might cross over still some now, where that was more of a widely accepted, kids got spankings, and that's what happened type thing, whereas now it's more like, that could, you got to be careful with that. However, him sitting here saying, yeah, I'm not going to answer that. I'm seeing all these signs of this dude knew a lot more than he's willing to admit. Maybe not with Jodi specifically, but in what we'll get into is the behavior at home with 8 passengers. Because one thing, if you follow me, you'll know I've been screaming from the top of my lungs is Ruby sitting here, oh, Jodi did this and Jodi did that. And I'm like, what about before Jodi? You know what I'm saying? You had a channel that got thrown off the air. I mean, you know what I'm saying? You got canceled basically because of your treatment of your children in these bizarre ways, right? You and Kevin were together during this time. So you can't tell me he's unaware of this going on in the house. And we'll get to it in a second where he's going to make some statements that make me say, yeah, and it sounds like he was probably okay with that.
Who's this female Jodi that your wife was with? Do you know a female named Jodi?
She is a therapist and a life coach, I know. And she's...
Do you respect her?
Do I respect her? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think she's a very honest, truthful person, yes.
Okay. You place value on Jodi?
I don't know what that means.
Like, do you value what she says and how she treats? Is your wife a client of hers? Is your wife a partner of hers? Is your wife a roommate with her? Your kids are living in her house is what I'm trying to say.
I'm not aware of that, but...
So much to unpack here. First of all, your kids are living in her house. Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, again, just like this... 100% checked down in the children's life. Number one. Number two, she's trustworthy. I value her. She's honest. And I'm like, dude, this woman has got everybody snowed. Not everybody, because some people seem to see right through her, right? I think the cops see right through her what she is. But these families that get involved in this whole, whatever you want to call connections, BS, they just lap it up like a thirsty dog in summer, right? And I'm like, I don't get it. I do not get, like, what kind of a therapist. Not one dude, I can't remember his name at this point, but he did an interview where he was on one of the Zoom calls where he finally was like, stood up and said, like, look, this is insane, the stuff she's asking us to do with the husbands and stuff. He was like, what kind of therapy is this? I mean, this is just her MO. Makes no sense to me whatsoever that they go along with it.
I know that they've been in business for the last year filming.
Who's they?
Ruby and Jodi. They film podcasts, and so every week a podcast goes up and I listen to it.
What's the name of it?
Connections with an X.
Like CON.
CONNEXIONS.
Now, we've already reviewed a lot of these podcasts on this channel before in previous things. Y'all, I mean, it's cringy, okay? Now, also, if he's listening to this stuff, you know that they are like passive aggressively making these podcasts, like as if they're talking to their partners, whether it's their husband or I'm sure some of the roles were reversed in this, but not many. Meaning it was like the husband kind of brainwashed and the wife not, but I don't know if that even took place. Again, I'm speechless, which y'all know is not normal for me, right? But one thing that I want you to also pay attention to is like how long into the 20 minutes into the video, this demeanor of his has not changed yet. He just had, well, they listen to Connections once a week, and it's a podcast they put out. Yeah, it's CONN. Again, there's no urgency. There is no where are the kids. There is no what's going on. I would be unglued at this point. Okay, unglued. Like, why are we asking this? What do you need for? What is going on? Zero of that.
And then, like, do you support them in that role and doing that and having?
Do I support them in the business?
Yeah, like, do you support them and think that what they're doing is a good thing, or?
Yeah, I support their business efforts. I think it's a good thing.
Are you involved with their business efforts, or?
No.
I mean, why would she let him be involved with the business? He can't live at home. He can't have anything to do with the kids. He has to sign the cars over. Of course, they're not going to let him do anything with the business. They just want his money. That's what he's there for. And he'll say, my job is to provide. Yeah, you're a wallet. Okay, that's all she wants. Especially when the money from 8 passengers went away, which he'll talk about. He's like, that was 90% of our income gone. But notice the detectives at work, they are 100% just trying to get to the point. How much of what Jodi and Ruby spew are you down with, that you agree with? Are you of this mindset? And I think that he kind of talks and walks the rail of like, well, I don't know. But these little tiny admissions come out throughout. Again, for me, it's the silence. It's the, I'm not freaking out to find my children. I'm okay in this discomfort.
And were you involved in the 8 passengers account with your family?
Yes. I was in the videos, if that's what you mean.
I briefly learned about this 2 hours ago.
So, did Ruby more so do the videos for the family?
Mm-hmm.
And how long did you guys do that for?
She started the channel in 2015, and as far as I'm aware, from the time I left, the last video she uploaded was towards the end of 2021.
So you're looking at about, what, 6 years for her to crash and burn with that. Very successful channel, you know, again, the monetization of children, but then also this just, you know, her whole family is this, they do all this, right? And I'm not trying to say they all are involved in the same type stuff here, but they're all like, you know, YouTube families and stuff like that. Not every last one of them, but it's a thing. You know, and again, it's just so interesting to hear the dynamics, because one thing I was always curious about, again, was just like them, how involved was he? Well, listening to it, what it sounds like to me is she ran everything. I mean, she still does, like I said. I mean, look at how much control she has over it. He's not even living at home, you know, but when he was there, it sounds like she was running the show, and I think he did whatever she told him to do. He would side with her. He would go along with her. He was just this very passive beta, you know, whatever. Oh, okay, that's what we're doing to the kids this week. Okay. You know, not going to have an opinion on it. So you can start to piece together how this came about. Because I guess one thing, too, that it's been a topic of conversation with people in comment sections and all this, you know, was how was she able to get away with this behavior at home if he wasn't condoning it? You know, and whether he believed in it or not, I just think he was a type dude that was just going to be like a welcome mat. And it was like, well, that's what Ruby's doing, so that's what we do. You know, she calls the shots.
So are you aware of how she disciplines the kids, or how she handles the kids with behavioral issues or anything like that?
No.
So you're unaware of how she does that?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of the physical condition of your children?
No. No. I'm I've chosen to trust my wife with the children.
Not aware. This is what I'm talking about. This bizarre stuff was going on way before, but also think about this. He was like, I trusted my wife with the children. I mean, obviously, you just kind of walked away from them, right? At the request of Jodi or, Ruby or whoever he claims did it. We'll get to that in a second. But if it's normal for him to see, oh, we cut our daughter's hair because she did this, or our son slept in a beanbag for 9 months because he did this, that's bizarre behavior. That's bizarre treatment, right? The things that Ruby did in her journal, documenting the things they did to the children, it's crazy, okay? If that's his normal, what he's used to seeing, then for him, he's going to be like, well, what's the issue? I mean, that's just another day, right? So I think that's one reason why he doesn't seem to bat an eye at this stuff. It's just, okay, well, sure. Where are we going with this?
I was trying to figure out, how much of a role do you play in the caretaking of specifically, of those two kids?
I pay the bills.
Okay.
So again, he couldn't live there. He couldn't have access to the children. Couldn't do any of this stuff, but they could take his money, right? Because he was paying Jodi for this counseling, okay? It makes me sick to my damn stomach, I swear. Let's just keep going.
But I am curious, when you guys had the previous 8 Passengers YouTube channel, you guys got a lot of heat for neglect and child abuse. A lot of people commented those things on there. Why were they commenting those things?
That's a good question. We had a son who was acting out in very selfish behavior.
Is this Chad or a different
Yes, this was Chad.
Okay, now prepare yourself, because we are going to get a glimpse into what I was talking about a moment before about what he considers normal. What he's getting ready to describe and is absolutely, to me, like abnormal. First of all, he goes, our son was acting in very selfish ways. So when she's like, we had this channel and there's this backlash of, things you're doing to the kids. Tell us about that. Immediately starts to go in and blame Chad. Well, we had a son who was acting in selfish ways. So we're immediately pivoting this to be like the kid's fault, that type thing. But again, just pay attention to his train of thought as we walk through this. And it's my opinion that this is why he probably didn't bat an eye at half the stuff that was going on, because it's almost like he's indoctrinated by Jodi or Ruby just as much as anybody else.
Basically, it boils down to he was being very cruel and mean to his siblings that he shared a room with, and so we removed him from the room. And we said, you can sleep anywhere you want. Sleep on the couch, sleep on the pull-out bed, sleep on the floor for all we care, but you're not sleeping in that room with your brother.
Now, here's the thing. When they talked about some of these cruelty and things that he was doing, and they talked about in a couple of their homemade videos of the things he was doing, you're being a big brother, you're kind of bullying the little kids, whatever, pulling these jigs. We're going to Disney, we're not going to Disney, and, things like this. So then you can't sleep in the room, whatever. Now, pretend on one level that they do this for a week, right? You can't sleep in your own bed, which I guess in my world, I'm thinking, isn't there like a list of things that we could be doing before we get to that point? But it's the length of time that they do this that is completely bizarre. Let's listen to the next clip.
9 months later, he had made a lot of changes in his life. And he was ready to, and we had moved by that time. And so we had a new house, and he was ready to move into his own bedroom. Made a video about it. And in the video, he mentioned something to the effect of, I've been sleeping for 9 months on a beanbag. And that is what all the uproar was about.
I've been sleeping for 9 months on a beanbag. Now, he's saying this, but there's other things too that were going on, right? That people were noticing and talking about and whatnot. All this was brewing. It wasn't just this event, but this could have been like the icebreaker, you know what I'm saying? 9 months 9 months. That's almost a year. That's insane, okay? Now, when I was a kid, I used to love sleeping on the sofa, and honestly would sleep on the sofa by choice almost every night. Like, I just never slept in my room. I just love sleeping on the sofa, and I don't know why. But I think part of it was having your back against something, but I digress. Maybe he liked sleeping on the beanbag. I don't know. I mean, as a 46-year-old or 47, whatever I am, I can't imagine the condition I would be in if I slept on a beanbag the next day. But again, this is a kid, right? But hearing the father talk about this like completely normal, like, yeah, we took his room away for like 9 months, and then he learned A, B, and C, and he's ready to have his own room. And I mean, I'm sure the cops are sitting here like, isn't that a little excessive? Like, I would think 3 weeks would be intense. You know what I'm saying? Like, but 9 months. Also think about this too, especially if you're a parent or you've been a child of a parent, whatever. Oftentimes when the child is punished for something, the parent is being punished too, because they're having to be accountable to it. And it depends on what it is. If it's, you can't take your car out, well, now I have to drive them. Or if you can't do this, well, now they're going to have to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's some level that you're all going through it together, right? And so telling a kid they can't sleep in their bedroom for whatever, okay, for 9 months, that is commitment, okay? Like, are you kidding? Y'all are able to maintain that? Okay. So, but also, he's like, and that's what it was all about. He acts like this is not a big deal at all. Like, and a little bit pissy over it, that they got canceled over it. So this is where he lets, in my opinion, these little truths out or whatever, that you're just like, okay, so this isn't abnormal to you.
Was that part of your guys' reason for separation after you guys ended 8 passengers?
Was that part of the reason? The reasons are because of ways that I treated my wife, and some of my own addictions that I was working through and seeking help on.
Okay, now we know, or if you don't, you're about to find out. This is almost like the McDonald's #1 with fries and a Coke thing that Jodi would do to everybody. Separate the male, tell them that they have all these addictions that they have to work through. Often the addictions are to rhymes with corn, but not corn. Okay, you do the math on that one. And this could be as simple as like, and the one dude, and if you remember, if you've been following this case, he did the interview and he was like, yeah, like I would do a double take on a female, and then I was being told that I was addicted to, that kind of stuff. And just like normal kind of things or whatever, especially for a dude who men are more visual, right? Men are going to be more like, oh God, she's attractive, kind of a thing. Maybe not that dramatic, but you know what I'm saying. And so Jodi would have all these families split up and the male separated, living on his own, siphoning his money off, talking about you need to work through this, that, and the other. Well, you can tell right here, well, I left because I was, working through my own things. And it's almost like, do you feel that way, or are you just repeating what you've been told? He just seems beaten down with it.
With pornography.
Thank you for sharing that.
And I've made some wonderful progress.
Like, is that something you came to the realization that you needed help and weren't doing things right, or is that something that like Jodi helped you guys recognize that maybe Ruby needed more? I'm trying to understand her involvement in your guys' life. She's my focus, so just to be honest.
I understand, and I can perceive that. Jodi and Ruby have a close relationship.
For whatever reason, I don't know why, this is just me being petty, but when he said, I understand and I can perceive that, it absolutely angered me. But why, right? I don't know. But it does. It infuriates me. I don't know why. It's like Scott Peterson's little ponytail just upset me. Anyways, so on this when he says that, when he says like what he was having issues with, and the female detective goes, "Thank you for sharing." And then you heard the other male cop, "Well, is this what Jodi told you? Did y'all decide this?" You can tell they already know how this works. They've seen this. And my opinion, my vibe that I'm getting is that this is something he's like, huh, well, no, that was Ruby's idea. It's almost like it never crossed his mind of the level of manipulation that was going on. And it makes me think, like, imagine this. Like, I can see dinner time at their house, Ruby incessantly, nonstop talking, not just dinner time, all the time, with just these teachings and this and that, and this is what it is. And almost like you have to go along with it to make it shut up. You know what I'm saying? That's almost the vibe that I get from him, and that he just stopped questioning things. Well, no, I mean, that's just what we do. We always put this here. But why? I don't know. Kind of a thing. And you just want to, I mean, I feel like you want to shake him and be like, wake up, hello, you know, come on, come to. Like, everyone can see what's going on here, dude. And I get you might have been like living in it, so it's hard to see it for what it is. You know, but it's like you've been away from it for a year. Did you do any kind of reflecting to say, wait a minute, hold on, this isn't right? What's going on here? I'm going to have a say in this. You know, I have a right to have that say, but it doesn't seem like any of this crossed his mind.
And Jodi saw the need for me to get help. And frankly, I agree. This space has been exactly what I need to face, you know, my own addictions and receive the support and help that I've needed.
This just really seems like somebody who is just spitting back out things that they have been told. Like, literally. Very David Koreshi. You know, Jodi felt that I needed to do this, so it is Jodi. You know what I'm saying? You know the cops are thinking, so it is her. Now, I still feel like Jodi had some kind of secret thing for not just what's her name, a Ruby, but maybe the rest of these women. Whether it was jealousy, love, something. There was something with her getting the women away from the men, you know, and sequestered to her own self, and then beginning the grooming process.
Well, you're the custodial parent of each other. I don't see why we can't explain to you why we're involved. So I don't recall the exact time, but sometime before 11 o'clock today, we received a phone call from 911 on our dispatch that a 12 to 13-year-old boy was knocking on doors in a neighborhood asking for food and water, that he was severely emaciated, that he had
What is it?
skinny, scrawny, malnutritioned, not enough food, not enough water to sustain life. So he had,
I'm sorry, what?
he had duct tape on his extremities, on his hands, on his ankles, and those were covering rope burns that were used to tie him down.
Okay, I don't know what I'm looking for, and we each handle things differently, but something in his reaction to this doesn't feel, I don't know if authentic is the word. It's like something about him feels so disconnected from everything that he's not capable of reacting. You know, because he's sitting here, what's emaciated? I was like, really? Okay. I mean, even I know that. Yeah, that's not saying much. You know what I'm saying? I was just like, aren't you a college professor or something? But, you know, whatever. That's just me being petty. But him hearing this, I'm just waiting for the, what? Are they okay? But there's just none of that. And again, one thing that I think is, again, because the stuff that he considers normal and okay is so far beyond what most people would feel is okay, with, like, you know, reprimanding and things of that nature. Now, I'm not trying to say that he condones this by any means, but it's almost just like, okay, you know, because again, if this was so out of the blue, I just feel like there would be some kind of reaction of like, well, what? But again, that's coming from me who's dramatic, right? I mean, not everybody's dramatic, I get that. So something just doesn't sit right with the reaction here, but I feel like we kind of get an answer to that in a minute, so let's keep going.
Take a second and think about what I just said. That's the condition of your son. Given that information, your son was taken to the hospital. A warrant has been applied and granted by the Department of Child and Family Services to remove from your wife's care. So no one right now is going to have access to these two children based on their physical condition.
I feel like the cop is being like, based on their physical, and I could be mad, I don't know, right? But it's almost like the cop too is experiencing this, like, I'm not getting any reaction from this dude. So I'm almost coming at him in the way of like, this isn't right. And I'm going to drill that into your head because you don't seem to think anything's wrong with us by the way you're reacting. This is kind of like, okay, man, that sucks. Kind of a thing. And again, when you see the evidence photos of the child, I mean, all you could do is sit there and start weeping, right? And again, I know that everybody reacts differently. I get that. I'll say it 100 times because I feel bad when I sit here and say, why aren't they doing this or why aren't they doing that? I understand everyone processes things different, but then there's a difference in there's a red flag going off with their reaction as opposed to just a reaction that's lacking something that I might offer or think I might offer in this scenario. I hope I would never be in this scenario, right? Of finding this kind of horrifying information out. And I'm sure there's also a little bit of shock, but again, I feel like because of the stuff that went on at the household, what shocks him is not, it takes a lot more to shock him than it would somebody else.
Do you understand that?
I understand.
Would you condone that behavior?
Would I condone that behavior?
That's my job. My job is to find out your knowledge of the treatment of these
based on
precious
your
children.
description, no. Again, I don't know the details or I don't know what's going on, but as you described that sounds horrible.
Disgusting. No human being should be treated like that.
Okay.
That's my thoughts. But again, we might be different on that.
That right there is all you need to know. You could tell he was not saying like, let me rewind here. This is the reaction out of this that I would want to say. Do you condone it? Absolutely not. And where is my child? Can I at least see them? This is not this. He was like, okay. He's like, well, we don't know the conditions. I was waiting for him to say, well, what did he do to deserve? Like, was he acting up? It was almost like it was the next words out of his mouth, right? And I'm sitting here like, what the cop is saying is how this goes. This is horrible. This is disgusting. No one deserves to be treated this way. And then you heard him say, we might feel differently about that. And I feel like they do. This is where I think a huge pivotal moment in this is that the cop realizes he might not be legally culpable, especially for what went down at Jodi's, because I think it's clear that he didn't know. I mean, he just was absent, right? They might not be able to prove anything that went down prior to that at Ace Passengers or anything of that nature. So that's this was a shocking part for me, where I was like, oh yeah, this guy's gone. But there's a few more coming up. Let's go ahead and get to them.
Lots.
Okay, because
your children are under medical care right now.
And what does that mean?
And it means that you don't have access to them. My understanding is that they are, what is that?
They're in the custody of DCFS.
And they will be for the next 7
There's a medical hold on them right now. So for at least the next 72 hours.
Now again, I'm doing what I say I don't like, but why can't I see my children? When can I get to them? What's that? There's none of that, and nobody, no one involved with these children and their life, including him at this point in time, needed to have anything to do with these kids. This becomes obvious, right? But just absolutely just disassociated. Like, it's like it hasn't fazed him. Now, towards the end, he will sit here and bring light to, well, I feel like, this is not me, or I'm in the wrong conference room, or whatever. It's like he tries to put forth some level of emotion into it, but but it's not there. And one thing that I would argue is that I think because his main concern is Ruby, and we'll get to a statement, it might be next, that makes me believe that, but that's why I think everything's being filtered through protect Ruby. I think Ruby has such a hold on this man and these children and their mindsets and all the things that went on in this household that it's like, again, it's like he's her little lapdog.
What's going to happen with my wife? I love my wife.
I don't know. I'm being honest with you. I don't know.
That's what I'm talking about. The biggest reaction that we see, what's going to happen to my wife? I love my wife. The one who has you living in an apartment for a year and haven't seen children? What do you call that? Is that Stockholm Syndrome where you fall in love with your captor or whatever, like that kind of thing? After all, what's going to happen with my kids? Now some of this could be edited out, you know what I'm saying? Not just from what I've done, but like there could be withheld. I wasn't there, okay? More concern is shown for Jodi. And this is what I'm getting at where I'm like, oh, well, there's your answer. That's why they don't bat an eye at this. The children were like this afterthought for everybody.
You realize that I have a picture of my family on my wall, and I look at it every day, and I work every day so I can get back to my family and save my family. And everything you're sharing to me just sounds like a made-up story.
Now, I don't know if this is just his normal behavior, but the whole smacking, he feels like this feels like a wooden actor on stage for the first time, okay? I work every day to get back to them, and I'm like, but what? You know what? It honestly feels like somebody who's brainwashed is what it feels like. It feels like somebody who is absent and brainwashed and void of who they ever were. Now, I don't know this man. I don't know what he was like before Ruby or Jodi. I mean, he's been with Ruby for 22 years or something? Very long time. However, that being said, the way he's talking about, I'm trying to get back to him. I'm like, honey, Jodi was never going to have you go back. Like, didn't you? It's been a year, okay? Haven't you realized that? They were never going to have you go back. They'll drain your bank account, but they'll never have you go back. They're just going to keep getting everything over. I mean, you were meeting her just however, within a few weeks to sign over the title to the cars. I mean, the writing's on the wall, and I'm sure the cops can see this, right?
I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, it sounds like a horror movie.
Yeah, absolutely it does. It sounds like a complete horror film. And it is. And this whole thing, again, I've just cut out a couple of things to use them as talking points, but this is where he goes into that. I feel like I'm in the wrong conference room. Like you were supposed to tell this to someone else. And again, it might just be the way he reacts because, I can appreciate that he's trying to say this is shocking. I feel like I'm numb all over. This can't be happening to me type energy. But again, as for what about Jodi? You're not seeing, and there's just something again that feels very flat about the performance, and I'm using the word performance intentionally.
We've had zero communications regarding the kids.
Okay.
I've had no reason to believe or think that there was anything going on. For all intents and purposes, I woke up this morning looking at the picture of my family and making my commitment today, as I do every day, that I'm going to live an honest, a virtuous, and a responsible life.
Now so this part for me, it's like, I haven't had any communication. And if this is true, I'm just trying to imagine what kind of therapy would you be in? And again, he's saying, it's by Ruby, but then Jodi said this. Some of his stuff doesn't make sense. It's like he's trying to protect, right? Because I'm like, what kind of therapy and therapist would keep you from your children for this long and have him convinced that he's this broken, useless man, right? Because that's what he comes off as at the suggestion of Jodi and his wife. It makes zero sense. Now, obviously, he has not been charged with anything, and again, it's probably hard to prove many things. I think really what they wanted was Jodi and Ruby, and especially Jodi. I think she's incredibly dangerous. Now, if you've been following my series on this, after watching Ruby, I think she's way more sinister and evil than I thought, and I already thought she was very sinister and evil, right? You okay, buddy? You got a little sneeze? So, watching this shed a whole new light on the scenario for me, especially through the lens of Kevin, because I wanted to hear from him for so long. And like I said in the beginning, I was very disappointed. I was disappointed in his reaction. I was disappointed in his lack of reaction. I was disappointed in the things that he said. He seemed to not act like this was a big deal at times, you know, and not specifically the things going on here, but it was almost like he wanted context to decide if this was bad or not. And his main concern was Ruby. And that part concerns me greatly. I mean, I think we can see why it was like, yeah, you ain't getting to the kids, honey. Like, there's a lot going on here. And I think just them talking and hearing this in this almost clinical situation, you can see this as an outside party of something's not right. Something's absolutely not right with this. Again, they're just piecing this all together. This is all just unfolded, but very quickly they can tell. Like, Jodi seems to be at the center of this, you know, and pulling these strings for this, that, and the other. And we've already heard at this point the countless victims of Jodi that have come forth saying how that she destroyed their family. So, anyways, that's it. I am dying to know what y'all think about this interview. I'm talking, drop it, and I cannot wait to read your comments on this. We might have to do a live chat and do like a comment section live chat or whatever for this specific video. I mean, all of them obviously, but this one right here, I'm so curious to get your thoughts on it. So that being said, if you're still watching, I appreciate it. Roscoe has gotten a little bit, well, he's ready to get down. So he says thank you, but he's ready. He's excited too. He wants you to drop blue sofas off in the comment section because he's already ready to take me and run down there and sit on that sofa and talk about this case, this video, and others as well. And until we do meander our way down there to do all that, we'll see y'all soon. I just wanted to say thank you again for watching the whole video, and also thank you for being part of the Sofa Squad. Special thanks to all the Patreon members, channel members from both of my channels, everybody who likes, shares, subscribes, comments in the comment sections. It helps the channel out so much. Now, don't forget, I do have that other channel, the podcast channel. That's where we go live, we hang out, we talk. We have kind of sort of a schedule, but just be sure and check it out. I'll put it up here on the screen. Also, if you're looking for merch, be sure to check out my Teespring store. I'll put that up here. And then, like I said in the beginning of the video, if you want to follow me and Roscoe on the Instagram, go on, check it out. It's right here on the screen again. But once again, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being part of the Sofa Squad, and I'll see you in the next video.